an empowered woman, an empowered person. We know all about the self. So you know that you have an authentic self. And here's where, if you're a 5D mystic, you know that it's being a human, left and right. So our chit chatter left, our right, the emotions that come up from our body. And the emotions that come up, they will have their origins from our 0 1 year old, from the belly of our mother, caregiver, or maybe it's not called a mother in your case. Okay, I'm attachment trauma informed, and we do personal development, self help. So people who are aware of their emotional spectrum and their thought spectrum, the inner growth mindset. So being you is an identity that you can be consciously aware of. And that means that you love all people. I'm going to begin with that. That's where we are human love narrative. We don't do the suffering bit. The suffering are for people who don't work with their nervous system. Embodied brain is what you are. And as a person who's had plenty of panic attacks, I can tell you, you can easily do this. Now, for some people, no. Why? Because they will have childhood trauma. They will have personality disorders that come from abuse and neglect. That's what the updated information from sciences people, not the ones who want to bring in their demonic stories. Okay, so no demon possesses anyone. And as a 5D mystic, I had already had that hunch a long time ago because I was raised with Jesus and God, and I saw no evil. Still don't. In fact, the Michael Stone scale, he's a forensic criminologist, points all people need good therapists if they're not kind. And childhood trauma survivor, healed and healing therapist Patrick Tiahan shares his biggest regret from his childhood is that it made him unkind. And that's because anyone who doesn't understand what self is, yourself has been constructed from the day you begin life, and the way you treat others and yourself is an indication of your relationship with the depths of you and the depths of others. And attachment styles and categories, very important. So get a hold of that and you'll get out of human suffering. One. And you'll have great relationships too. And so you can treat that adaptive child and maladaptive child. Those are both treatable. No one needs to be stigmatizing narcissists or sociopaths or psychopaths or any of the clusters. And here's where there's a bunch of beautiful, great free information, proactive for anyone who needs. Dr. Daniel Fox, he's awesome for borderline personality. And I believe he will be also good with other areas, but I have a bit of a mixed right now out of what I saw, so I'm just going to put that to the side. It's more of his empathy is what shines through with borderline personality. With other personality disorders, it's unclear if he has just as much empathy, so I want to just make that aware. He's really great though with all of his information. He's an expert on personality disorders. The empathy is what distinguishes him from those who I've seen who don't have empathy. They write things like, here's how to be immune to the narcissist. Here are 10 ways to get underneath the skin of the narcissist. Those are mantles of mental health. If they were not mantles, then they would be saying something completely different, which is how we can support a narcissist who's healing, how we can support ourselves to notice that that is a person who has a maladaptive child personality disorder. How can we talk to them about this? How can we look to see if we can get through that grandiosity? They would be giving you, that's what empathy is, with compassion, proactive tips and ways, and they would not be using buzzwords or buzzways to try and get things to keep rolling. Okay, so people who care about their popularity are people who have a mantle because they're also convinced, like a teenager. And what do teenagers do? Tell each other what to do, and they all have one Peter Pan who's following a Wendy. And then there's lost boys, lost girls, lost days. Okay, so the human love tribe here, we're all independent lovers. We are not like, oh yeah, that's a person on a pedestal. No, we're all on a flat floor. It's called being a decent human being. So empowered women, empowered men, empowered days. Our self, it's ours. It's a verb, which is why for some of us, we don't consider ourselves changed because we've consistently maintained consciousness. That's the capacity to work with your emotional plane and mental plane because it's not hard. The ones who move on over here, it's because they grow integrated. So they learn how I can work with my emotional plane and I can work with my mental plane, and they get to work with their identity and deconstruct it Not because they lose who they are, no, because they become flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable. Thank you, Dr. Daniel Siegel. He's great with all of this information of integration of brain. That's who I learn it from. And then for trauma, I have a bunch of other different courses that I've learned and keep learning because I support, again, people on personal development and self-help. And you never know, borderline traits can come into the room, narcissistic traits. And at the end of the day, I always like to look at the attachment categories and styles, and the emotional and physical abuse and neglect are what are going to tell me what I already have learned about the childhood developmental trauma and why yoga helps the body, and mindfulness, but also how mindfulness and meditation practices bring up certainty and uncertainty. And that's why Dr. Daniel Siegel is really great, because he's explained very well what happens when rigidity comes about, and that's our love avoidance, and what happens when chaos, which would be, instead, I'm going to put them in the love dependence. And there's Terry Real for couples. He's doing great at helping couples to meet each other and to be functional adult love language. Okay, so let's talk Sadhguru. You can deepen your experience of life only if you are wide open to everything without identifying yourself with anything. And that's challenging for people to do. But when you begin to understand that you are a self who has emotions and thoughts, that's number one. If it's hard to do those, then again, we want to remember. Here's Patrick Tiahan. He shared today, when children are not allowed to hate being abused, they will start to hate themselves. And he gives some examples in his meme. You can check him out on YouTube. He gives, for example, if we were smarter, we'd solve the family problems. If we were stronger, we'd protect mom from dad. If we were more interesting, we wouldn't be left alone. If we had just not made that noise, we wouldn't have gotten beaten. Okay, so these are aspects that a person who's healing themselves is not going to bring around with a, here's my list of attributes that you can't. No, they're going to be working to empower their emotional plane, to get out of shame and out of blame and out of guilt and out of maladaptive adaptive child behavior and out of projection and out of not having their own healthy sense of self-worth. So their identity will be deconstructed to remove what not truths have come about. But that's the part. The words are one aspect. The emotions are what consistently come up. So when we have sensations, images, affects, meanings, behaviors, thank you, Peter Levine, this is where a person who learns who they are, it begins with, what's your attachment category? Very important. Okay, do we have childhood trauma? Do we have traits of personality disorders? And then you go and get into a good therapist. The bad ones don't help you because they give you a pathology versus letting you know, no, everything's understandable. And today's updated information, not the stuff from the 1970s, will share with you the capacity for you to be that generator of diversity in the lovely plane of possibilities. Dr. Daniel Siegel has taught me the wheel of awareness, which I will be implementing and using. And here's where integration of the brain is amazing. But again, it's a step-by-step process, doesn't have a shortcut. Okay, so an empowered woman, I love to see people who choose the human love narrative, because that's where they're telling me I've chosen me, loving myself first. And that's because I live a life beyond the solo self, spirituality and sciences. I live a life of meaning with my human herd. And I know that relationships, if they're scary, it's because I didn't have a beginning with humans that made it safe for me to be me. I'm not going to project, though, my 0-1-year-old and say, you didn't soothe my nervous system the way I wanted you to, and so I'm going to make you into the villain. When you see mantles of mental health, mantles of spirituality, mantles of yoga, mantles of anything, 3D, 4D, the in and out group people, when they're rigid and they don't love all 8 billion and growing, and they don't know that we can work everything out, and I mean know it from here and here, I'm not in that. That's limited consciousness group. You're here with an infinite, higher human conscious potential experience. So all of what is within here can be brought to flexibility, adaptability, and coherence, and energized and stability. If not, that's when we go to the good therapists who share with us what can be done. And really, out of the, I forget all the diagnoses and how it works, but with one of my courses, I remember Dr. Daniel Siegel getting asked a question, and he said, we know how to work with people to help them be more comfortable. So the aspects of rigidity and chaos, and I don't remember all of how he explained it, but that's besides the point of this episode. Okay, let me close. this, and we're going to continue a little bit, and then we'll have another episode later. So, when you understand that the self of you is the 0 1 or the 0 1 year old, the 2 year old, the 3 year old, the 4 year old, your child self, and you choose to move into working with the mindset, that's when you're going to notice that you can develop trust with people, because you're going to speak about what you are feeling. Okay, so when nervous systems are entrained, which is what happens when there's resonance, how does resonance happen? Resonance happens because you let go of thinking you know everything. So I'm present because I'm a curious, open, accepting, and loving person. And I don't have to like you. So loving can be removed if you want. I can accept who you are, but decide that I don't want to vibe with you. You've heard of those stories, okay? So the brain, thank you, Lisa Feldman Barrett, is running a model of its body. So, number one, when you get a hold of all that you are, and that's as the person, and you then deconstruct that plane, that plateau actually, of all the aspects that were brought to you from your family. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop taking my notes and just chit chat, and then we'll move on. You will notice when stuff comes up, if you're accepting of yourself with flaws and imperfections, and you know your family, you know your whole system, okay? And so no shame. You cannot look clearly at anything if you have a shame button, if you have no capacity to get into at least the land of neutrality. Okay, so when you're ashamed of yourself, let's say you've done things that you're ashamed of, you want to just say, okay, shame, hold on a minute. I'm going to put you to the side. I'm going to contemplate this for a minute with my Jacob personality. Thank you to that rabbi. So you want to put self and other to the side. That's Isaac and Abraham. You want to get Jacob, and you want to say, okay, let me look at the aspects. And this is why you deconstruct an identity and you become flexible. This does not mean you cancel it. It does not mean that you're getting rid of anything. It means you're allowing yourself to actually become a person who takes a look, and then you get proactive. And so when it comes to self and accepting oneself, you have flaws, I have flaws, but that doesn't mean you are feeling shitty. Okay, so as long as instead inside there are emotions that are, I'm shitty, it's going to mean that your body hasn't fully taken all of what you are, all of you, and said, I'm going to stand up for you. Okay, but not in a way of projecting. So not in a way of I won't hear criticism, I won't hear other people. No, in a way of saying I will stand up for me. And in fact, the more you have this already in the forefront, you don't say I'm getting rid of energy vampires, dark auras. I have saga with twin flames, soulmates. I have all these people that are trying to keep me down. That's a teenager way of talking. I remember teenagers, because I remember noticing we all felt like, oh, nobody understands us. Yeah, they do. Not all of them, but that's what family and friends. I mean, not everybody's going to get you because they are not leading with your own sense of self. So when you don't feel felt, that's the moment you're like, oh, they didn't get me. If you have empowerment, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to cancel that person. I don't want to hear them anymore. That's actually something that older women and men still do. I don't even my look. I'm gonna stop. So, anyways, when you see people who do the human suffering love narrative, they don't notice they're teenagers in the room. I noticed drama kings and queens. I got called emotionless. I'm like, no. Rational, yes. Rational, fine. Emotionless, no. But you know what? Whatever. If you consider being able to be emotionally a master of myself, see, emotional mastery is nice because it's emotional intelligence, mental intelligence, and it's all mastery, and it's really just you using your brain. It's using the mind that then integrates the brain, excuse me, because the mind is what you're chit-chatting with and feeling with, and that's our divine masculine, and the body's your divine feminine. So when you have sensations and images come up, you'll have your narrative. If you know who you are, you'll know your story, and you usually will be told your story. And so who are the people? Well, that immediate herd tells you a story. And you hear that story. When you hear it with a Jacob's ears, so again, you're in neutrality land, you're not ashamed, you're not angry, you're not afraid, you're not, oh my gosh, I'm not welcome. So you have no tainting of this self as if somebody needs to take your side. There's your 0 1 year old, but you're just sitting there. That makes sense. Okay. And emotionally, it's something that it's It's not the emotion. That's the part you're able to make sense of it. And in fact, when you witness your own inner child, you process the emotion that arises, the sensation, the image, the affect, the meaning, all of it. You don't behave in a way of adaptive child because you're not doing anything with others. You're doing reflective practice right now, is what I'm talking about in your own inner growth mindset approach. Okay. You say, okay, that makes sense, that it is part of my story. Okay, so yes, I have, by the way, recently had a aha moment. I always get aha moments when you're, again, a pure piece of consciousness. It's called I'm unconditional love. I'm flawed. You're flawed. It's all good. And then you're also that pure 3-year-old. So you just want to hug. You just having fun. And if you're upset, it's not about anger. Anger's for correction. That's really when people get into their teenage modes and they have superhero capes and they want to prance around like princesses and princes or villains or whatever it is that they think superheroes look like. And that's dehumanizing your whole story, which doesn't make you witness what you are. It gives you pseudo aliveness, not aliveness. Because you're technically making up another story. Like, I think it's like secondary thinking so that you can visualize. And visualizing, okay, when you're using your imagination in a way that allows you to expand inner growth, not inner critic or outer critic. So again, if you're in the land of neutral, you're not picking sides. You're not saying me or other, in or out group. No, you're observing something and you're going to process it and you're going to welcome it. And once you say, I can let it go, that's the part, that's number 3. Now, they've found, the trauma recovery researchers, that people want a 4. They want bystanders to take their side. And what Dr. Daniel Siegel has taught me is that it's been 50 million years that our human species does this in and out group. Luckily for you, my group is humans. That's it. And I say luckily because I am here for those who want to be here. And so I'm like, yep, come on over, because I'm tired of hearing their divide. It's clearly a divide that is personal. And when you're a human who says everyone's a 0-1-year-old, why are you talking to me about mental health and you're yelling at someone? Why are you talking to me about spirituality and you're yelling at someone? Why are you talking to me about anything within the sphere of infinite love and you're yelling at me? You yelling is your sympathetic. I don't need anything to do. If you're talking to me, I'm going to be hearing you. Now, if you're feeling me, I'm going to know it because you're going to be your own guitar string, and that's when I'm going to be expanded because I'll feel felt and I'll know that I have an intelligent, emotionally and mentally human being in front of me and they are interacting. So that's when I'm going to be having a conversation because there's a social engagement system, not a yelling at me and not a telling at me and not a correcting me and not a teenager Cusco attitude. So an empowered woman, again, we know who we are. And any person who's empowered, man, woman, they will know who they are. Their self will be presented with a manner of the social engagement system, no yelling. Anyone who yells has yet to learn how to harness their 3-year-old, their tone. And the tone gives it away. The tone gives it away when we're being smartasses, the tones, but only the people who are prefrontal cortex material will be able to actually know what they are witnessing because they're a clear vessel. A clear vessel is because you are a person who says, I'm good to be who I am with my qualities. I know I live with a society. I don't need shame to behave. The only ones who still think people need shame to behave are the same ones who don't know how to talk about the 0-1-year-old of every human being. So as long as you don't know how to love yourself first, I'm going to know that you need to be given a way to stay and draw within the lines because you have yet to master your emotional plane. All of your body is your 0-1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way up to 16. So when I'm dealing with any person, if they don't know how to be an empowered human being, I got a 16-year-old in front of me. Everything else is secondary. I know that I don't have a human love narrative person in front of me. I got a superhero cape or a supervillain. For all I know, who knows what they're doing with their little chit chatter. It's not going to be something interesting. It's going to be something repetitive because there's only so many patterns that people can play out, by the way. And then for stories, well, just go watch movies. Has anybody ever noticed that they do the same? And some people are like, yeah, that's why we want to watch different movies. Yeah, those movies aren't interesting either. For some of us. But anyways, okay, so when you're willing to put in the work to be yourself, you're going to be able to have empowering, lovely relationships with you, in your lovely brain, in your mind, and with others. And it's always a conversation. And it's the most amazing of conversations when you're able to be the authentic self, because that's what's beautiful about being here. It's the capacity to share your heart openly. And when you know that flaws and imperfections doesn't mean defective, that's why the shame getting out of that, that society has a way to indicate to us how to behave. Yes, Jesus showed us, Buddha showed us, Sadhguru shows us, the empowered people show us. In fact, the ones who don't show us, yeah, I don't talk about them, because the minute that you begin talking about them, you see all of their lost boys, lost girls, and lost days flocking around their lovely superhero capes. So I know already that the ones of us who see clearly, we have consistently chosen how to continue to expand consciousness. And it's beautiful. Because in my brain, as a mystic, I know exactly who those people are. And I know I don't know all of them, but I love to see sciences and spirituality coming together. There's no demons that come out of the body of people with yoga. Spirituality, new age, not bullshit, just like self-help, not bullshit. And pseudoscience, not really crap, but I mean, if you're looking for academia, then you might want to join school and organizations versus thinking of where they get their money from and doing all of the other type of, so, this is the part. You can build like Hansel and Gretel. They can, build a little breadcrumb of trails. I can do it. You can do it. Anyone can do it. That's the whole point of why those of us who see beyond are like, okay, there's a breadcrumb of trails. There's another one. There's another one. And there's another one. And okay, which ones are the ones leading us home? Ah, there they are. Cool. High five, 5D. There was a beautiful bunch of 5D collective people. Come on over again to grow up and be a Peter Pan, but a grown-up version. So we don't follow Wendy's. We just have fun with our inner child, adult, and functional adult relationships, empowered women, men. Ourself is our own constructed identity. But first you deconstruct, and you arrive at the, what is it again? I forget what words he uses, but the possibility generator. Yes, you can generate your own diversification, and it's not in a way that's impractical. No, it's just a way that you can feel here, and then you welcome others, and we work with others who are also doing this. We give healthy self-worth and empowered relationships. That's the part that we get to do right here besides ourselves. So being authentic, it's all pachas with our lovely playground, and we want to get also our environment and all that other great stuff, into the picture. So come on over. I hope you have a wonderful day. Like, share, subscribe so we can grow the channel. And once we get to our 1K, we're going to have Ask Maria. It's paid, opinionated, columnist type content. And we might have some other type. I'm still thinking. But that'll be for membership. So have a wonderful day.